Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdsson of World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen. So let's talk Bitcoin. Of course, we haven't gone deeply into Bitcoin in the past. We've talked a lot about gold and silver. We've talked about the reason why we need to get off centrally planned currency and out of the fiat money empire, money I put in quotations. But Bitcoin is a very interesting blockchain innovation. I think it's probably one of the biggest innovations in currency since the use of gold and silver thousands of years ago. Because, of course, people might say, well, what about fiat currency? That was a big innovation. It wasn't an innovation for the better. It was basically just a control complex in order to push people further into debt, enslave them in debt, put them into servitude to the state and to the monetary system as the monetary system is manipulated. It's artificial, all while they're manipulating the markets at the same time. It creates a huge problem of devaluation, debt, and inflation. And Bitcoin stands out as something far different from that because while it may not be physical, it actually does depend on the demand, and it's not centrally planned into the ground like we see so many other currencies throughout the world. So, John, can you go a bit into what Bitcoin is, how it is changing the way we look at economics?
Well, first of all, Bitcoin was supposed to be looking a little bit similar to what gold is. And of course, Bitcoin is mined, so you have computers which have massive graphic cards stacked in them of processing power that are processing these numbers in order to find the right selection of numbers, and then you create Bitcoins. It's basically like looking at mathematical math problems and then solving it.
It's all algorithm.
It's an old algorithm that is constantly banging onto this, and the more it gets out in the algorithm, the harder and harder and harder it will get. There's going to be 21 million Bitcoins. I believe it's 13.5 or 14 million right now. But over time, like Bitcoin is meant to stop at 21, and that's going to be the set supply of it, which is interesting. There's going to be actual set supply of a currency. Now, of course, the problem could be like where they talked about gold, for example, is that as population grow, you also need more capital to flow, so it could stagnate that. Now, they've of course said that they could change the algorithm, which is of course then again, you can manipulate it, and then of course if it gets really overvalued to other fiat currencies, you could add zeros after, like currently there's 8 zeros after the comma. They could add 16, 32, whatever they want to make it easier to use. Now, I used lots of Bitcoins. I invested in mining operations. I actually invested in the first Bitcoin hedge fund that was backed by Max Kaiser and Simon Dixon. I used Bitcoin for transactions here in town. I hosted Bitcoin events and so on. I'm very curious and I'm very interested in the technologies of Bitcoin because what Bitcoin has created is created a decentralized monetary system option of it. And now the blockchain technology in itself is just a whole nother layer of things where you could change government, like everything within technology with it. But we're going to focus on, of course, on the Bitcoin part of it and the currency part. Now, Bitcoin, of course, can be highly speculative again, because what it's based on the price is market cap, which means X amount of currency that are flowed into Bitcoin. So currently, I believe it's right around 12 billion or something. And of course, as it rises, like the price rises. Now, I've actually made a chart which we can pull up here, and you can actually see where I did, like, what would happen if the market cap of Bitcoin would end up at, like a size of a country in capital, or the size of the world economy. Like, how much would the value be of, Bitcoin? Very interesting to take a look at. You'll see, like, Bitcoin has insane prices when you get to these levels. But another important thing to look at is the cons of Bitcoin, and there's been talk, about Bitcoin, that it's a democratic currency. which with the miners, for example, you could take over the currency if you have 51% of the mining power.
Yeah.
And that is very scary. You see, like China and others, are like increasingly getting more and more mining power, and that way you could actually take it over, and then suddenly you could shut that operation down. And then suddenly the if you have a massive economy going in with Bitcoin, now you have the problem of like 51% of all the servers are down basically because they sabotage it. And then you have super slow movement of like the currency, how they look at the currency, like they have authentication of every transaction, of course, and how those get authenticated. If you have a 51% of the servers disappear, that will go very much slower. So there is dangers there. And then, of course, never, ever, ever try to centralize, which is what the elites are trying to do with a cashless society with the blockchain technology.
That becomes dangerous because then you get enslaved to the banks and your privacy
is full control grid, basically, over your every single transaction that you do in your life. So that is a huge worry of letting governments take it, because they don't want to have a decentralized currency. They want to have a centralized currency. And then, of course, you have friends of ours like Anthem Blanchard, which is putting out Anthem Coin. And
Anthem
so on.
Gold,
Anthem Gold, which is basically a gold-backed cryptocurrency. And there again, there's some value to it now. You can actually like move it. But then you got to look at it like, are you able to print that currency and so on? So there's a lot of rules with Bitcoin, but I really love the decentralization of Bitcoin. It's very important. Look at it the way, Josh, look at it the way BitTorrent. Every single, person around has a little bit of Bitcoin, like have the whole blockchain on their wallet, on their computer, when you download a wallet on your computer. So everybody has a part of it on their computers.
And they all contribute to the demand, the speed, and everything.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Well, I just wanted to add in a point here, John, which is that I think that Bitcoin is a great innovation, and I do believe that it is great insurance for the temporary temporary insurance. 100%. I'm not even talking as much about investment, but like I say often with gold and silver, it's insurance for the long run. But I don't know if it's good insurance for 50, 100 years down the line. I think it's good at the time being. So I think it's a good thing to get involved in, and I think it's a good thing to be able to keep your money safe, at the time as this fiat empire is starting to tumble and crash in on itself, as it always does.
It's another safety net.
It is another safety net, and I think it's a great thing, especially if it stays non-centralized. I think that's very good, obviously. I mean, it's a no-brainer, those that study basic economics, that this is a good thing. I would just say that I'm personally, I like the physical preserved value, which of course can last centuries and centuries. But of course, I think that there's always room for alternatives, and I think Bitcoin has shown itself over the years to really be a great thing. And I think there's been a lot of doubters over time, and they've been proven wrong time and time again. So I'm not here to disparage Bitcoin at all. I think that Bitcoin is a great thing. I personally don't think it's good for 100 years. I think it's good for the time being. And that's a great thing, because of course, as long as it's not centralized, it's not authoritarian, it's not there to put you into debt, it's not there to push you into servitude. It's voluntary, and it's a great thing. And I've always talked about competing currencies, and I think there's a lot of room for lots of different kind of blockchain currencies to compete, and it's all about demand, right? So I think that it's a great thing. It gets us away from the fiat paper empire that's being created on a global level. I think that it's good to have a little bit of Bitcoin. I think it's good to have a little bit of gold and silver. I think it's good to just strictly be able to keep your money safe for the economic crash and then on. And I think that what we're looking at right now is quite historic. It's a game changer. Bitcoin is definitely a game changer, and it worries a lot of the elites, which is why they're trying to use that system, but try and centrally plan it at the same time. But that's not what is so attractive about Bitcoin. It's the fact that it's not centrally planned that is attractive about it. So The state can try whatever they want. They're obviously trying really hard, as we see M0 in the States go down. The trend looks crazy right now and is going towards a cashless society.
And also trying to ban it, of course, because it's a massive competition to their failing system that they have. We've seen China talk down the Bitcoin price for quite high, like it was up at the thousands, and then they talked it down. The central bank, they said that they're going to go in and regulate and look at the Bitcoin exchange in China, which was basically the reason why was so many people moving through China was because they gave literally like zero exchange fees. Now that's another thing too that we also got to look at when you get into Bitcoin. There's of course exchange fees, but when you're in there and when you trade, the only fees that you actually pay are given to the miners themselves when they actually mine, because they're using all this processing power to keep the system up and running.
Yeah.
So that's how you pay these guys that are the miners. Another thing that I find very fascinating with the way the government, thinks about the Bitcoin is they talked about it. The terrorists use it. The black market uses it. We got to stop it because people can't have privacy in their lives, and it's only criminals that would want to have privacy, of course, right, Josh?
Of course, yeah. Well, if you see something, say something. If you got nothing to hide, what do you care? These stupid talking points that we hear perpetually.
Oh, of course we are. And what we need to understand with Bitcoin is, and what I found fascinating also is, Bitcoin goes up and down, but it's funny, every time it goes down it finds a new little ceiling to stay at, and then it goes higher, ever higher. And of course people, I remember the frenzy back in the day where people just started to learn that Bitcoin was going up to like from cents to $25. People were just like going crazy. It's like a Ponzi scheme with people just piling in money, and of course it's like massive speculation. And then of course we do know that to control the price, there is big players in there that put in money to make a lot of money, but then also collapse it to
manipulate demand.
To manipulate the demand and manipulate the price of it for their own interest.
Buy a whole bunch and then just dump a whole bunch or stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly, to make a whole bunch of money. And of course, that's another thing with these cryptocurrencies.
But that's unavoidable with, I think, any form of currency, really.
Yeah, it's very like it's always supply and demand with currencies. That's always how it's going to be, and people will try to make money on it. There's always going to be that. No matter what type of money or currency you try to use, you're never going to be able to stop that.
Hopefully that doesn't affect the long run of things, though, like way down the line. It happens in the temporary, but not in the long term.
Yeah, that's what we've seen with the US dollar. It's been manipulated for so long now that, it's like that's a long-term problem. With Bitcoin, it's different. It's more like, it's not a massive market capitalization. Like, it's 12 billion. It's nothing compared to, looking at economies that have trillions in size. So it's still a very, very tiny little speck, but it's the biggest currency. But again, if you go to coinmarketcap.com, you can actually see there's hundreds upon hundreds of these cryptocurrencies that got started.
Absolutely.
But I do want to warn people about certain types of currencies, and I have people approaching me all the time about the currencies that are what is called pre-mined. So basically what they've done, a set of people, they are pre-mining all this currency to themselves, and then they hope as they move on to the free market and open their currency that they're going to get a massive gain by selling it. But then usually what happens is a massive plummets in value and is a massive loss there. For most people, some people of course make some money, but because all these people are trying to sell it for a profit. So beware of those schemes. Look at if they're pre-mined, pre-controlled before they actually started mining them. It's very important. I personally like, for example, Ethereum, and I look at Max Kaiser's Startcoin, for example, which is crowdfunding platform, very interesting type of currency that you create. As you create value in the crowdfunding platform, you actually get a little of this currency. I found it very fascinating. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about in the future about this blockchain technology and, of course, the currency aspect of it, which is Bitcoin and other currencies. I think is here to stay. I think we're going to see a safe haven there, of course, in the short term with all this turmoil coming in the fiat paper currency that most people have their wealth in. I think you're going to see a little bit of a safe haven. So I like to have a little bit of Bitcoin, and mostly I'm again, like Josh, we are very conservative, and we like to hold something that we've seen that could keep its value over a little bit of a historical time span. And of course, Bitcoin can go to zero in value as well, guys. So you got to understand all these risks and rewards with Bitcoin, and just understand it and use it. If you want to use it as a currency, go right ahead. I've used it myself, because sometimes it's very convenient. You just have like a QR code basically that they scan, and then the transaction is done. So it's I really like it. I highly promote it to people to get involved. You can even start your own currency and have it in your local community if you want.
Yeah, and then we have even blockchain social medias like Steemit. Like these things expand to all different areas. And of course, we talked to Stephen Kendall not that long ago about how blockchain is a game changer. And I just wanted to say that as a voluntarist, of course, I have a lot of respect for the idea of voluntary currencies that are non-manipulated. I want to point out that I do believe in the future, I envision businesses in an actual free market, free of the state. I envision businesses taking Bitcoin, other blockchain technology, and of course gold and silver.
Well, we might have a solar system currency and a galactic currency in the future. So, like,
I think we're looking a bit of way down the line.
Yeah, of course, but we can't let us being blocked by these central governments and tyrannical governments that always grow to a massive size and wants to have full control over everything that individuals have.
Someday we'll learn and we'll break free.
I think so. I think we will end up, and I think the voluntary system, the voluntary approach, I think it's probably one of the only ways out really to truly free humanity.
And it'll be attractive to people if they truly do learn about it and understand the system. Yeah, exactly. I wanted to quickly finish it off by saying, like, we at WHAM, I remember we did a report back in 2013 on Bitcoin, and things were still very kind of iffy at that time. A lot of people were doubting it, and I don't blame them. I was one of them that was doubting it, and I still have my concerns. But I think we did an interview with a guy named Mark Dorsch, who started a Bitcoin Manitoba here in Manitoba, Canada, and he had a lot of interesting things to say about it. I will have to catch up with him almost 4 years later, but we'll have to try and catch up with him and see what he thinks now and where he's at now. But this is something that we'll continue to go into a lot, because of course blockchain is very interesting, free of central planning, of course, and it's something that of course the elites are trying to use for their advantage in order to centrally plan it. But we're talking strictly outside of central planning. There's a lot of issues, but there's a lot of pros. And looking at that, I think there's nothing that really doesn't have any issues next to their pros. Gold and silver can be manipulated as well.
And what you got to understand,
which it does. Yeah.
And what do we got to understand? I don't think we're gonna go backwards in the world today. I think we're gonna move forward and use technology. Like, technology is gonna have to be there with us, because it's a great power, but it's also a huge responsibility.
And it can be a burden,
because it makes us very receptible to, solar storms and other things. And then, of course, with AI and all that stuff, that's another level with, the old Skynet and Terminator warnings from the past in those movies. So
it's a possibility.
I think the future is bright, but we really need to just work together and free the markets, because there's so much potential for humanity, and we can't let it getting destroyed by the fiat currency system and massive governments.
Yeah, take it away from the collectivist system and bring it back to the individual, where we will prosper far greater, and we will see a great amount of wealth, opportunity, strength, innovation, competition, and of course a lot less sick people, a lot less poor people. It's just a great system altogether. I explained it in my video, what an anarchist society looks like 50 years down the line. Check that out on our channel as well. It's quite recent. But yeah, I mean, this is a very important issue, and we will get back to you on this in the future, because obviously this is the future. We're talking about something that does have potential to be the future of economics, the future of the monetary system.
100%.
And I think it's a great thing, has problems, but it's a great thing. So we will continue to deliver that message to you and bring that information to you. So thanks, John, for going into this as well. And we'll be back at you with much more. Check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated. And of course, also check the link in the description and the comments for Anarchapulco, where you can save 10% on your tickets to Anarchapulco by typing in promo code WAM. That's WAM. And hopefully I'll be able to talk to a bunch of great innovators in the Bitcoin community down there. I can't wait. If you can help me out with that, I hope to bring you a ton of information. So thanks, everyone, and we'll be back at you with much more. This is Josh Sigurdsson and John Snyson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.